Hey, welcome back. Doug Pagitt Radio on AM 950, the voice of Minnesota. A couple of things going on. You can see if you're watching on the video feed, and even if you're not, head over to infor10.com. That's a place where we're trying to recruit people to contribute $10 givings, $10 contributions to help 124 orphans in Haiti. You give me $10, we put that together. That pays for 15 days worth of food for one kid there. We put together $30,000, and these kids are all set, all 124 of them, for a year. Be the first time in their lives that they have had a full meal, that they've had full meals every day. So I think it's really something worth doing.
How
That's
close to you are you on that
infor10.org.
goal? How close to you?
We're a long way from that goal.
Oh, come on, people.
We're a long way from that goal.
$10.
Yeah, we are.
Kid.
We are a long way from it. Yeah. I mean, we're a couple $1,000s and we need $30,000. So let's step it up.
Let's do it.
As they say. I don't know who says that. I don't know who actually says, let's step it up, but that's what we're going to do. We're going to say
Cheerleaders,
that. Let's step it up, as we say in our radio program around here. All right. So, hey, a week from now, I have a book coming out called Church in the Inventive Age. And, it's my contribution to try to say that there's some things about the way that churches function in this world that I think matter and important. So I'm kind of excited about that, and you're going to be hearing about that a little bit more as the radio program goes on, because if you got a radio show and you have a book coming out, the two just seem to come together.
Sure.
It's like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who says that?
That the two things come together like peanut butter and jelly?
Yeah, right.
Well, we do around here. That's kind of one of our sayings around here.
Let's step it up.
That's what we say. We're going to step it up on bringing the two things together. All right, so let me tell you a little bit about this book. I wrote this book, Church in the Inventive Age, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to suggest that there's a way in which churches could and should function in our day that's going to be distinct from other periods. And not in the sense that I think that it should be different, but churches tend to be the outlets. Churches tend to be the gathering places. Churches of all varieties, big ones and small ones, they tend to be the places where religious people in our society gather together. Now, there's a lot of religious people who don't have anything to do with churches. There's a lot of people who are interested in God and in faith and in spirituality, and they want nothing to do with churches at all. I understand that. I get that. But for the most part, religious folks tend to assign themselves or align themselves or join together with some kind of a church. And I think if we could have better churches, that would actually make a difference in our world. Now, a little disclaimer, if I could. There's a lot of people, and I come out of a tradition in which people will speak about churches as if they're the hope of the world. I don't know if folks listening are familiar with that phrase, but I hear that a lot from people, that like churches are God's ultimate tool for getting done in the world what God wants to get done in the world. And I don't see it that way, right? I don't think churches are ultimately the way that people or that God moves in the world, but they are places where religious people gather together and they play an important role. They're not the end of the game. They're not the reason for our existence. We don't exist so that we can put churches together. Yeah. Rather, our communities that we form and call these churches, they matter because they're the way that we organize ourselves in our religious expressions. And what I've tried to do in this book is to say there should be a way of the church today that was as fitting and as meaningful as the periods that have gone before us. And so I try to make a suggestion that we are in the fourth cultural age in North America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so when you talk about churches, are you talking church with a small c? Or capital, capital C.
Yeah,
talking
right.
about like, the church on the corner or the church universal?
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the church on the corner.
Okay.
This whole notion, some of you might be familiar with what John's raising here, that there's two kinds of churches. There's like the one you can see, and then there's the really true mystical church. I've never understood what people are talking about with that. I don't get it. I don't organize my life that way. No, I just don't think that that's actually a useful, beneficial, or helpful way for someone to think about churches. Because what I think they're getting at is that there's this elect group of people when they talk about church like that. There's a select group of people who are part of this big universal church, and those are the people who are really up to what God's up to in the world. Those are really the true people, and we don't really know who they all are, but there's two classes of people. There's the really in ones, and then there's everyone else. And that's a notion that my sense of understanding Christianity doesn't hold to very well. I don't think one can hold to the Christian story and to that story at the same time, which comes as a bit of a surprise to people because that's That's what their churches have told them. That's what Christians have told them. That's the primary argument of some Christian traditions, is that there really are these two groups of people. So those who are on God's side. And
so when you're talking to the church on the corner, are you talking like, are you trying to tell them this is how you should do church now?
Yeah, no, not really. I'm trying to tell them that there was this period of time in American culture that we call the agrarian age, right? The farm time, the sort of little house on the prairie period of time. And there were churches that were formed in that period of time, this agrarian age, where you lived off the land, you lived close to people, you didn't travel more than 100 miles from where you were born, you knew the people who made your food, you knew the people who made your clothing, you connected with all those people in a small village, in a small town kind of atmosphere. Mm-hmm. In fact, most of human existence in the world today and through the ages has been in that kind of an environment. Yeah. So there was a cultural creation of a church that had a certain look and feel during that period of time. This kind of prairie church, kind of small white farm church with a little steeple on it and all of that.
The graveyard in the back.
The graveyard in the back. Yeah, that kind of vibe. Well, that tends to give way in the middle 1800s to the early 1900s when what we would now call, what historians would call, industrialization. And when industrialization comes, people move from rural environments into the urban environments. And in these urban environments, they're organizing in totally different ways. And the skill sets and the approaches that made sense in the agrarian age not only don't work in the urban context, they get in the way. So now churches aren't the only church in town or one of two churches. Now you have huge competition. So in the industrial age, churches form themselves into a whole new kind of denomination. So if you know of denominational churches, or what are often called the mainline churches, those are churches that were formed out of the industrial age and the industrial anticipation of how things are supposed to be in the world. So in the industrial age, you have branding going on, where the pastor's job now is not just to be the parish pastor of everyone in the town, but it's how do I create people into the stream that I'm a part of? How do I produce the kind of brand that I'm into? So Presbyterians are trying to make Presbyterians, and Lutherans are trying to make Lutherans, and Methodists are trying to make Methodists. And you're trying to do that in an environment where the Presbyterians might also want to grab a Methodist from here or there, right? So there becomes some competition. So you get these big churches on corners that look like factories in the way that industrialization made sense to people during that day. Well, that way of living and of organizing gives way in the middle 1950s in what we now call the information age. So at the dawning of the information age, now churches start to organize themselves not around what town you're in, like you did in the agrarian age, and not around what brand you are, like they did in the industrial age, but rather what do you say and what do you teach and what do you know? So in the information age, what becomes important is the message of that particular local congregation. So that's the time where you have people who grew up a Methodist, but now want to go to the Lutheran church because they like the way the pastor says it over there. And church signs kind of give you this picture, right? You have the church sign in the agrarian age that told you the name of the town. You have the church sign in the industrial age that told you the brand of that form of Christianity. And the church sign in the information age has the topic of the sermon on it.
Yeah.
And you can even see places where they've had to retrofit their signs to make this work. And so the information age has a whole way of organizing with curriculum and with teaching and education wings and all that. And I believe that just as the industrial age took over for the agrarian age and the information age took over for the industrial age, so now we're moving into the inventive age, and the book is about what that inventive age will look like. Churches. So buy the book and you can find out what the inventive age is about.
Sounds good.
All right. So, hey, look at that. I would tell you all the book right here if I wasn't coming up against a hard break. No, I wouldn't. I would still tell you to go buy the book. Hey, we're going to be joined by Carla Barnhill. She's an inventive age mom. We'll talk with Carla Barnhill after the break on AM 950, the Voice of Minnesota, broadcasting Doug Pagitt Radio, live and online.